safe, and you smile, you nod, you play along, but inside you're somewhere else entirely. You're thinking about the conversation beneath the conversation, the patterns no one mentions, the questions no one's asking, and suddenly you realize you're alone. Not physically, but in every way that matters. This is the hidden cost of intelligence. The price nobody tells you about, the isolation that comes, not from being different, but from seeing differently. Let me tell you something about intelligent people. Something that might explain why you feel the way you do. Intelligence isn't just about knowing more, it's about perceiving more. Connecting dots that others don't see, following thoughts to their logical conclusions, even when those conclusions are uncomfortable. And here's the problem. Most people don't want to go there. They don't want to question the game. They want to play it. They don't want to examine the mask. They want to wear it. They don't want to wonder if the emperor has clothes. They want to complement the fabric. But you can't help it. You see the threads hanging loose. You notice the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the unspoken agreements everyone pretends are absolute truths. And when you point them out, even gently, even playfully, people get uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And being right about things people don't want to examine makes you dangerous. So they distance themselves. Not consciously, perhaps, not maliciously, but they do. They stop inviting you to things. They keep conversations shallow around you. They call you intense or overthinking or too serious. And you learn to keep your thoughts to yourself. You learn to dumb it down, to speak in half-truths, to laugh at jokes you don't find funny, to nod along with opinions you don't share. You learn to hide, because full honesty, you've discovered, is social suicide. Authentic expression is loneliness in motion.
Hello and welcome to the show. And if you're one of those, then of course you're more than welcome on this channel, because our channel is full of intelligent people. Let's start the show. Welcome to Warren Thornton on Patreon. Hello and welcome to warrenthornton.com. We have a heck of a show for you tonight. We've got lots and lots of stuff to be getting on with, lots and lots of stuff that needs debunking, and lots of stuff that you didn't know about. Plus, we have a massive exclusive for you tonight. It is the CIA, or I should say CIA and the Pentagon having a massive row with the State Department. And we're going to get into why that is so a little bit later. We're going to be showing you a video of the Air Canada at LaGuardia hitting the fire truck. We'll be talking about ambulances. We'll be talking about planted stories. We'll be talking about the American invasion. We'll be talking about Americans who are dying. We'll be talking about CENTCOM, the OnlyFans, Dubai in mourning. We'll be talking Etu Barak. We'll be talking F-15s that are down. The Germany and Japan new military alliance, the Gerald Ford in Crete, a floating bridge that has collapsed and killed quite a few people. US Mercs being killed in Kryvyi Rog in the Ukraine. We'll be talking about night warfare drones, US morale, and of course, we'll be talking about the regime change, Saudi Arabia, the Straits of Hormuz, of course, and of course Trump's market manipulation, and of course US Treasury bonds, and much more besides. So we've got an absolute ton to get into, and we're going to do that almost immediately. Let's show you a video to start with, because we think this is quite staggering. Let's have a little look at this.
Nein, keine nicht du, nu. Sag dir keine nicht du. Kriegst du Flagge, du, vier ambulances Flagge. Keine nicht du. Kriegst du.
There we are. So that's ambulances well alight in London. Now, of course, everybody is jumping on the bandwagon and saying, oh, how terrible it is, this anti-Semitism, everything that's going on is absolutely dreadful. We can't have this. This can't be happening in London and everything else. And of course, one of the, shall we say, the first people to come out and start shouting about this was, of course, Wes Streeting, or as we call him, Potted by Peter. Many, many moons ago, good friends with Peter Mandelson, even though he denied it from a very young age. Let's just leave it there. And very simply, this smacks very much, shall we say, of a false flag. This is very much something that can take away the limelight from the fact that another false flag has been highlighted left, right, and centre. And the false flag, of course, that has been highlighted left, right, and centre is, of course, the nonsense over Diego Garcia, the absolute nonsense that we called out quite a while back, and there's more and more of that to come. And let's just give you a quick rundown of what we got for you tonight. So there we are, lots to come. And of course, as I say, we've just done ambulances right now. And of course, we don't want to go too much into that because once again, it is a complete nonsense. And of course, it is meant to distract you. We're 100% certain of that as well. We have lots of videos concerning Donald Trump, who has turned around and said that Iran, of course, are wanting to talk and everything else. So let's have a little rundown of all Trump's speeches today. Let's have a little look at this.
You said there's many points of agreement with Iran right now.
Many.
What can you give us a
Many, like 15 points. 15 points.
Iran has said yes.
Well, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. That's number one. That's number 1, 2, and 3. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
They said yes to that?
They've agreed to that.
So not 15 points then. If not having a nuclear weapon is number 1, 2, and 3, then you've only got 13 points, surely. There is a lot of nonsense that is coming out about this. And as I say, we're going to have a deep dive into this because, of course, it is utter nonsense what is going on. Now, this is all part of the US drawing up the peace plan, no missile program for 5 years. This is what they're trying to put forward. 0 uranium enrichment. They're not going to agree to that. Nuclear sites dismantled. They're not going to literally have that. Outside monitoring of centrifuges. They don't mind that. Missiles capped at 1,000 kilometers. They're not going to have that because, of course, that makes Israel completely safe and leaves Iran completely vulnerable and no proxy funding. This story, of course, is coming from Axios, which is a complete nonsense. And, of course, Axios are one of those people, or should we say one of those group who turn around and say all sorts of strange things. The nonsense that is coming out from them is quite staggering. And of course, it's only going to get worse. And of course, we've got Trump talking more and more about these talks. Let's have a little listen.
Mr. President, Iran's foreign ministry says you're not telling the truth when it comes to productive conversations to end the war.
Well, they're going to have to get themselves better public relations people. We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. Perhaps that hasn't been conveyed. The communication, as you know, has been blown to pieces. They're unable to talk to each other. But we've had very strong talks. Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner had them. They went, I would say, perfectly. I would say that if they carry through with that, it'll end that problem, that conflict. And I think it'll end it very, very substantially. We have very much in mind our partners in the Middle East. We've had great relationships with a lot of them, as you know. A lot of them were surprisingly hit. And I was surprised to see it, and so was everyone else. But we have, they're very much in mind in the discussions. So the discussions took place yesterday. They went into yesterday evening. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone, because it's very hard to find a country. It's very hard for them to get out, I guess. But we'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
There we go. So that's Trump's speech there. He had some other stuff as well to say. Have a little quick look.
So tomorrow morning sometime, their time, we were expected to blow up their largest electric generating plants that cost over $10 billion to build. It's a very good one. There was no dearth of money. And one shot, it's gone. It collapses. Why would they want that? So they called. I didn't call. They called. They want to make a deal. And we are very willing to make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. And it's got to be no more wars, no more nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons anymore. They're agreeing to that. Any of that stuff, there's no deal.
Right. So let's get into this a little bit then, because Trump has come out and said that they spoke to them, that literally Iran called them begging for a deal. That is complete and utter nonsense. And Iran have turned around and said it is complete and utter nonsense. Sean Murphy.
Well, he just stated there, they're not going to have nuclear weapons anymore. Well, they haven't got any, and they never did have.
No.
So you can take what he says with a pinch of salt, because he's totally wrong. He's got it all wrong.
Yeah, it is quite
I've just seen a lovely photograph of him having a conversation with the Iranians.
Yeah,
and it was Trump standing in front of a mirror.
Yes, exactly that. Nillis.
You've got to ask yourself, is it Trump's dementia, or is it there's no truth getting through to Trump because of his inner circle, and Susie Wiles doesn't let any truth get to him? Or does the Israel, he's just got the ear of Israel and he's just hearing that? Because throughout the whole of this thing, it's never been based on truth. His whole attack on Iran, and women being beheaded for not wearing head veils, to Iran being the worst terrorist organization in the world, and fanatic, evil Ayatollah, who's, they say his most favorite Western book was Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which is so very compassionate sort of person really. So,
quite staggering.
He's divorced himself from the truth.
And he certainly backed himself into a corner.
It's a bit like the Western media, anyway. If you rely so much on lies, it's not good for the soul. It's not good for the whole country, and it's not good for the individual either.
Yeah, exactly that. Lee Williams.
Basically, I believe personally is a compulsive liar. That's number one. He's matched to Starmer. The second thing is when he actually says things like peace talks. Is he talking about when they're going into that island famously that Iran know they're going to head to?
Yeah, it is quite staggering, the absolute nonsense that is coming out over this. And as I say, we're going to get into this in a big way because they have been back channeling like crazy. Louis Bastos.
Morning, Warren. It's just the same thing
Hello.
as Iraq. It's like almost like a copy of Iraq. What happened?
Yeah.
They don't have anything.
Yes, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. You know, one of those. We can keep lying through our teeth. Iran, of course, have come out and said absolutely no, that this didn't take place, and they're not having it in the slightest. And I've got to say, I totally agree with them as well. The nonsense that's been coming out about this is no surprise to anybody who's been following this very, very hard. Trump has, of course, many times said that they've been calling and they haven't been calling. But this time, it seems to have really turned around and bitten him in the backside. And here we go. Very, very simply, they were game planning out this possible call and everything else. And once again, as I say, now, where did this story originate from? Well, let's get into this a little bit because it is interesting. Of course, like the nonsense story that came out about the missiles that were to Diego Garcia, this always comes from a source. And of course, the source this time is, of course, the Axios, who, of course, let's be absolutely clear here what happens. Axios print stuff that is given to them by the State Department, by the State Department or Mossad. And of course, there's a good reason for that. And of course, the Wall Street Journal is the preferred paper of the CIA. So here's the so-called journalist who broke the story. His name is Barak Ravid, and he works for Axios. Now, he's the one who turned around and said it's a breaking story. They all wanted to get around the table and talk. And of course, this is complete nonsense. And why is this nonsense? And why is Barak Ravid suddenly got all these stories? Well, it's very, very straightforward. Barak Ravid is an Israeli journalist who moved from military intelligence into high-profile media roles. He served around 6 years in the IDF, including as an officer in the Unit 8200, the IDF's main signals intelligence and cyber intelligence unit. After his military service, he went to and a BA in Middle Eastern history from Tel Aviv University. He began in journalism on the news desk of NRG and later became the chief diplomatic correspondent and commentator at Channel 13 TV. He then transitioned to the US media landscape, working as Axios' Middle East correspondent and later as a political and foreign policy analyst for various other outlets. So let this be a lesson to you. If you see a story from this guy, his name is Barak Ravid, or you see something from Axios, you see something from the Wall Street Journal, avoid it like the plague and treat it for the absolute nonsense that it is. And as I say, Iran have just turned around and gone, absolutely no way are we having any of this. And of course, these people, it may not be very evident to you, but when they do these things and they move these people into the alternative sphere, because when you're in the alternative sphere, it is very, very easy to be distracted by the fact that these people suddenly have a huge following. Okay. When these people have a huge following, suddenly appear from nowhere, suddenly appear working for one of these outlets, or you get these people and you know that the money that's backing them, the reason they become so popular is the Israelis are absolutely brilliant at this. And what they do is they get loads and loads of bot farms. And if you've never seen one, we're going to show you one now. They use loads and loads of bot farms. And of course, what they do is they then all interlink. You get a team of about 7 or 8 people working around the clock, who look after these bot farms. Here's one now. You will be amazed how many of these are available and how many of these the Israelis actually run.
Olha isso. Meu Deus do céu, são centenas. Dados no YouTube, é uma fazenda de visualização. Quem montou isso aqui gastou uma fortuna. A gente precisa chamar o pessoal da inteligência agora. Esse celular até o teto.
Parece uma colmeia.
Vai dar trabalho.
So there you go. That's what one of those bot farms looks like. And of course, off a beach phone, they can run God knows how many accounts. So that is exactly how they do it. Nicholas.
Yeah, it's not only the bot farms, it's all the legacy media really that have been taken over by the Zionists.
Yes,
from local newspapers and to radio stations, talk radio, legacy, the BBC, the independent television stations, not only in the UK but in Europe and in America, in Australia. It's everywhere. And the model that they used was the same as they used to get the Nazis in power, by the radio stations, by the newspapers, and you got a very good chance of persuading the electorate to go your way.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the mainstream media is held by various governments and everything else. But the real important factor here is the alternative media as well. Whatever you do, don't just think that it is literally the mainstream media that's captured here. 3/4 of the alternative media that you see, people on X and everything else, suddenly have these 100,000 followers. It's because they have these bot farms like this. And suddenly they've gone, instead of building organically, suddenly they've gone straight up through the stratosphere and everybody's following them. You only have to look at things like 2C TV, look at people, and they'll be pushed by these various entities. Nicholas, again.
Yeah, well, you only look at that interview that Netanyahu had with these TikTok influencers, when he actually said, TikTok is the most important thing for us. That's the tip of our spear. And then again, but people gravitate to the truth. And this is why Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are the biggest podcasters in the United States at the moment, because they've got some truth there, and people understand that. If they don't understand it intellectually, I think they understand it, on another dimension, that they're speaking some truth. And I wouldn't be surprised. They were talking about arresting Tucker Carlson. I know they're putting court cases against Candace Owens, and
of course they will.
That's the good fly in the ointment. That's a banner of freedom, really, as I see it.
Yes, there's very few freedom people out there. Tucker Carlson isn't bought by anyone, and neither is Candace Owens. They survive basically on who they are. Yes, Nicholas.
Another is Warren Thornton. Thank you very much, Warren.
Thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, we don't have all the followers that they do, but that would be nice. But of course, at the end of the day, as long as we're getting the truth out there, who cares? One of those.
You need to get on Tucker. You need to get on Tucker's show. George Galloway's viewing went up several million after he went on Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I'm okay where I am. Cheers. Let's get into this because this, of course, thank you very much for that, Nellis. It's very kind of you. Let's have a look at this lunacy.
This enemy's defeated, and there's some level of change in the government. Pray to God. We would have a lot to say about that oil, wouldn't we? Just like we have a lot to say about the oil in Venezuela, no?
Yeah, we will have a lot of say about that oil for sure. But let's not forget the fact that the United States is an independent oil and gas exporter. And that's also really important to remember because that's part of this president's agenda to tap into the capacity of America. And when you're talking about all that oil coming onto the market and all that gas coming into the market, simple supply and demand. Oil prices and gas prices will go down and economic activity will go up. So, yes, the United States will, I don't know the strategy specifics in terms of what this president is thinking, but look at what he's done in Venezuela and the fact that now the U.S. is in charge of that oil.
That is Mark Levine, who is, shall we say, one of the more deranged people who are out there. And of course, this is this woman again, Mornings with Maria. This is one example of literally an Israeli-owned, shall we say, entity on Fox News.
Welcome back. I just spoke with President Trump, and he told me that Iran wants to make a deal badly. He said that the talks have been ongoing. I said, how much longer will this conflict go on? He said the talks, I said 5 days to halt or postpone strikes on the electrical infrastructure. It could happen sooner.
So there we go. So you can hear from the nonsense that she's coming out with, of course, how bad that is. Louis Bastos.
The problem is that oil in Venezuela, they're going to have to spend a lot of money to clean it, to refine it before it can be used. And the same goes for Iran. I don't know what these guys are thinking, really. They must have a lot of money to do that stuff.
Yeah, it is a very, very strange thing. And of course, we're going to get into,
These talks go well and you reach a ceasefire agreement with Iran. Do you believe Israel would abide by that agreement?
I think Israel will be very happy with what we have. We just spoke to Israel a little while ago. I think they'll be very happy. This will be peace for Israel, long-term peace, guaranteed peace. If this happens, and I can't guarantee it, but I think it's going to. My life is a deal. That's all I do is deals my whole life. I think this is something that's going to happen. And why wouldn't it happen? So tomorrow morning sometime, their time, we were expected to blow up their largest electric generating plants.
Now, very simply, what happened is a bit of a row broke out. And many people were advising Trump that this is not the way to go. And in fact, there's all sorts of Armageddon could happen. This is complete nonsense, of course. They have not spoken. And the Iranians have come out and absolutely called them out and said, this never happened. We are in no way talking whatsoever. And of course, we have all sorts here. Here we go. Every week, Trump makes these kind of statements to drive down oil prices. Even his 5-day deadline aligns with closure of the energy market. But in reality, there are no negotiations underway, nor does Trump have the capability to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. Iran's firm threat has once again forced Trump to back down. And that's pretty much where we are, because when we're talking about the negotiations and what's gone on, it is very, very straightforward and very, very easy to work out exactly what has happened here. Trump is backed into a corner now, and he has to find a way out. And he has been calling. He's been calling lots and lots of different people. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, the reason he's given it a week is because he needs a week to come up. After a week and nothing happens, you're not going to hear about this again, I don't suppose. But he needs a week to come up with another cunning plan.
Yeah. And of course, we mustn't forget about market manipulation. Let's have a look at this.
More than any one person. The president went on to say or insist that this is regime change because it's totally different people that were involved in the last regime. I would imagine some of the people are the same. This is the president's take on that, insisting that it's regime change.
They've overthrown the government. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Because it's a different person you're speaking to. If they've got the same ideals as the last person you were speaking to or the last person you tried to kill, that doesn't mean that you've suddenly had any fantastic success. And of course, this is once again them trying to spin this nonsense. And it really is the most appalling nonsense that they're coming out with. And of course, we're going to get more and more of this as we go along. Let's get into this, because this is, shall we say, pretty much where we are. This is, of course, to do with, and we broke this story miles ahead of anybody else, about the false flag at Diego Garcia, where loads of people were printing that it happened or might have happened. We called it out straight away. And of course, we're not trying to say we told you so, but we did tell you so. Let's have a look.
In Diego Garcia, and it's 4,000 kilometers away, whilst Iran hitherto was imagined and had stated its maximum range was 2,000, and that A, this made you liars, and B, it meant that Piers Morgan's studio might get one of these missiles down its chimney. Did Iran fire 2 missiles which narrowly missed their target in Diego Garcia? Or was that somebody else that did that?
Iranians have said that they did not fire those missiles. And they also say that they did not fire missiles towards Turkey or Oman. And therefore, those, we must conclude that these are false flag operations. But just one thing that I wanted to add, George, is...
So he went on to talk about other things, but he's quite clearly stating that, of course, Iran had nothing to do with it, and he's not buying any of this nonsense.
Thing is clear that I think someone spoke sense in Donald Trump's circle and perhaps him directly, that if these strikes take place, it is going to be catastrophic for the civilian society, the civil infrastructure in Iran and the civil society inside this country, and also the retaliation that we might potentially see from Iran toward the Gulf states, but also Israel, will most certainly be enormous. So I think the cost is now outweighing President Trump's bombast and threat.
There we go. So Sky actually speaking a bit of sense there. And of course, this was never going to happen, because they know that Iran can carry out shall we say, their threats. We've already seen them striking the Navy, and of course, then Iran closed the Straits of Hormuz and the tankers. And as we're speaking, Israel are still bombing infrastructure inside Iran, and they are doing that on America's orders. So please don't think for one second that America are holding off for the next 5 days, because they're not. Okay, they really are not. And of course, they're going to keep bombing, but they're going to do it through Israel. And of course, Israel will take the blame for it. And they're quite happy to do so, because they know that this is part and parcel of what the plan is. Now, there have been phone calls. They phoned the Chinese. They have phoned absolutely everybody. But a really important phone call took place between Lavrov and Arachi. Lavrov was turning around and saying how awful the behavior of the Americans was. Arachi was agreeing, and Lavrov said it'd be a great idea if we can get peace. And of course, that needs to happen as soon as possible. Now, the Russians have done the back channel that they were asked to do, and they were asked to do that by the US State Department. We can tell you that. They've also phoned the Chinese. The Chinese said that they would try and convey the wishes of America. And the wishes of America from the Chinese, and this is from our guy, and we have a guy in the Chinese embassy here who talks to us and lets us know what's going on. He has turned around and said that America are trying to put forward the same deal, and Iran won't pick up the phone. They're trying to put forward the same deal as they had. Iran are not having a bar of that at all. And in fact, literally, they turned around and said it's perfectly acceptable to have the deal that we had previously. And Iran said, why would we trust them a third time after they've bombed us twice? And of course, they want nothing further to do with them. And of course, nobody really can blame them for not wanting to pick up the phone. They've also gone through Turkey as well. And Turkey have turned around and said that as far as they're concerned, they've got to have something new. Now, of course, this is all market manipulation as well for oil futures, which they can get nice and rich on. But let's stay with this for a moment. Peskov, somebody, of course, you know, we have somebody very close to Peskov, and Peskov has turned around and said that they will do all they can to try and bring a peaceful solution. But that is diplomatic speak and Russian speak for what are you going to give the Iranians? Because if you're not going to give the Iranians something here, if you're not going to give them something to hang their hat on, there is no point in us talking to them at all. And let's have a little think here. That of course this is being done just before the markets open, and of course last time, of course they were going to bomb them. Baron Trump bought 50 million in oil futures just before the markets opened, the day before the strike on the 28th, which again we told you was coming on the 28th, and of course he went and bought oil futures. Shall we have a little look at this? Now, this is Baron Trump, obviously. And then, of course, if we have a look at this, you've got all in the family, the potential winners of the Iran war. You've got Steve Witkoff, Alex Witkoff of the Witkoff Group, the World Liberty Financial. Then you've got Donald Trump, and then you've got Eric Trump of the World Liberty Financial, Donald Trump Jr., 789 Capital, and Jared Kushner Affinity Partners, who have all put money into, wait for it, they say war is a racket. Well, certainly is. Lockheed Martin, Palantir, and Anduril, all of these companies have invested since Trump took office in these. And of course, how can I put this? The futures have gone through the roof. And of course, everybody's making money hand over fist. Isn't that amazing? Millis.
Yeah, forgive me for my ignorance, Ron. Is Anduril another defense company?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
It is. Yeah, all those are defense companies.
Is that Israeli based as well?
Well, the Israelis have a lot of money invested in there, but of course it's a military industrial complex, and very much the money that goes through there flows the other way as well. So let's be absolutely straight here. There's no question that they're making money hand over fist. They're buying oil futures and they're manipulating the markets so that literally they can make a ton of money off people dying. Let's have a look. Here we go. Here's the drop. Once he announced that there were talks, look at this. Suddenly, it's dropped right down. And of course, as soon as you announce the talks, then the oil prices start to drop down to 94, where they were well over 100. And of course, you can bet your bottom dollar, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it. You can bet your bottom dollar, or in fact their dollars, that they're doing exactly that. They're making a stack of money on that. And of course, as soon as we have the evidence of that, we will bring it to you, because it's not, as I say, it's not going to stop. They're going to keep going with this. And of course, you shouldn't be fooled by this statement in any other way. It is making money for Donald Trump, his family, and his friends. I am pleased to report the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversation. No, they haven't, regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. That is nonsense. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I've instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants, and we're going to let the Israelis do it instead. That's exactly what we're getting. Sean Murphy.
You notice the way they spelt witch?
Yeah. Yeah, they couldn't even spell that correctly. No. It is quite staggering, isn't it? And of course, many people are saying, we've got to open the Straits of Hormuz and everything else. At the moment, they're quite happy for that not to happen. We're going to talk a bit more about the Straits of Hormuz in a little bit. But very simply, as I say, they are making money hand over fist. The Israelis are still bombing the infrastructure. Okay. By the way, this is Tel Aviv.
Yo, nasıl? İyi böyle. Bir şey lan.
That is Tel Aviv, and of course everybody's saying they've got tons of missiles, but Tel Aviv are running out of air defense at a rapid rate. And anybody who thinks differently, you can literally just go and have a look at that. And of course, there is no question that these are dropping, shall we say, like flies. And of course, Iran are going to keep pouring it on. Have a look at this.
انجام عملیات وعده صادق 4 با رمز یا فاطمه الزهرا سلام الله علیها علیه اهداف صهیونیستی و آمریکایی اجرا شد. در این موج بر اساس شناسایی انجام شده توسط یگانهای اطلاعات عملیات مکانهای استقرار جدید نظامیان و اختفای ارتشیان صهیونیستی در نقاط مختلف سرزمین‌های اشغالی هدف قرار گرفتند. پایگاه هوایی شاهزاده سلطان در الخرج که از محل‌های اصلی استقرار و عملیات هوایی متجاوزان آمریکایی علیه ایران است نیز با موشک‌های بالستیک مورد هدف قرار گرفت. به نظامیان تروریست صهیونی و آمریکایی هشدار داده می‌شود که به طور کامل تحت رصد یگانهای اطلاعات عملیات نیروهای مسلح ما هستند و مخفی شدن آنها در شهرک‌ها همچون مخفی شدن آنها در یک شهرک در آراد هم به دلیل اشراف اطلاعاتی نیروهای مسلح موجب نجات جان آنها نمی شود. سردرگمی راهبردی فرماندهی سنتکام، فروپاشی شبکه پدافند چند لایه آمریکایی صهیونی در منطقه غرب آسیا و اختلال در سامانه پشتیبانی تسلیحات آمریکا در پی تدابیر و ضربات نیروهای مسلح ایران به دشمنان متخاصم معادلات جنگ را به نفع ایران تغییر داده است. عصبانیت و استیصال جنگ افروزان آمریکایی و صهیونیستی قابل پیش بینی بود و پیشتر نسبت به باطلاق جنگ برای آمریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی و جنگ منطقه‌ای و فراگیر هشدار داده بودیم و من نصر الا من عند الله العزیز الحکیم.
There we are. So that's Iran literally giving out exactly what their thoughts are and what's going to happen in future. And of course, they're not going to shift from that one little bit. Sean Murphy.
That wasn't our guy from Yemen in his new job, was it?
No, it wasn't. I do miss him. He was much more, shall we say, forthright. He would stand there and literally shout at you, which is quite entertaining. And of course, anybody who's ever seen the Yemeni spokesman would turn around and go, it's absolutely hilarious. But the Iran spokesman's got nothing on the Yemeni spokesman. The Yemeni spokesman is absolutely brilliant. This is Etu Barak. And of course, he is, let's be honest here, Peter Mandelson's friend and Jeffrey Epstein's closest person.
חושש מאוד שזה לא מעשי שאני צריך לעשות זה. אני חושש מאוד שגם את הצד השני. האיראנים בחרו באסטרטגיה שהיא ידועה ברבים מזמן, אבל משום מה היא לא זכתה לטיפול שיטתי בערכת מצב. האם ניתן לפתוח את מצרי הורמוז? להערכתי, אני אומר בכאב לב, בשביל לעשות את זה צריך להוריד שם 2 דיוויזיות אמריקאיות, להתארגן להיות שם חודשים. ככה נראתה תחילת המלחמה בווייטנאם, ככה נראתה תחילת המלחמה בעיראק, ככה נקרא באפגניסטן. זה בהתחלה מצליח, אגב, כל המלחמות, גם הפרק החדש הזה שלנו, צריך לדעת, מלחמה יזומה, מתחילה בהישג מזהיר, העמקת נזקים מרשימה, אחר כך שלב הדשדוש, לפי דעתי נכנסנו אליו, ואם לא יודעים לצאת ממנו ולחתוך בזמן, הוא נגמר במשא ומתן בתנאים נחותים ממה שהיו לפני תחילת כל העניינים, או בתבוסה. אז מה היית עושה עכשיו? רגע, ואמריקה לא ניצחה אף מלחמה, היא ניצחה כל קרב כמעט, לא ניצחה אף מלחמה ב-60 שנה האחרונות. צריך את כל הדבר הזה לחשוב, ואני מקווה מאוד שאני טועה, אני חושש מאוד שאנחנו בתחילת הדשדוש. בוא נדבר עליהם.
There's Barack throwing America under the bus, and they've started doing this, by the way, and this is just a tactic that they do. America throw Israel under the bus, Israel throw America under the bus, and they are working hand in hand. This nonsense, US is holding talks with Iranian parliamentary speaker Mohammed Baghdad Ghalibaf, source tells Jerusalem Post, and of course this came out through them as well. Now, once again, they have turned around and say this is complete nonsense. And of course, that we don't, and we have not been holding talks. And he has come out and personally denied that he's had any contact whatsoever. None, neither direct nor indirect. So once again, just letting you know that this is complete rubbish. Do not believe it for a second. The Saudis are getting very, very annoyed, as we can see here. Strange, it means deepening your dependence on a country that has led yours into a disastrous conflict without caring about your interest. And the Saudis put, we will never be blackmailed by terrorists. Oh, because that's normally because you spend a lot of time sponsoring them. And of course, that nonsense from the Saudi Arabians. Saudis have always been in this. They've never been away from it. The Saudis and Israel work hand in hand with America. They always have done, and they'll continue to do so. This will not change in any way, shape, or form. So please be aware that that is the case, because they, as I say, they will not change. Saudis and the Israelis were responsible in January for what happened in the first place. Okay, they were, along with the Americans, they were the ones who overthrew, and now they've actually come out and admitted that they were part and parcel of this, shall we say, organised effort to try and overthrow the government. And of course, as I said, we literally put it out there and showed you the people that were part of this. Let's have a look at what CENTCOM have been up to. So they've been blowing up stationary wagons and what they and shall we say stationary boats and everything else. But many of these people, of course, shall we say, very little has actually been damaged that is really important. And of course, CENTCOM came out with absolute nonsense over this. Let's have a look.
Good man.
And of course, they literally CENTCOM have turned around and said it was a complete accident. The F-15 just fell out of the air. First, they denied that it had fallen out of the air. Then they said nobody had hit it over Kuwait. But once again, you see, they can't. There's been a lot of accidents over Kuwait, hasn't there? And of course, we all know that F-15 was hit. So CENTCOM have been lying through their teeth. And most of these F-15s are getting down over Kuwait, and they're going to continue to get down over Kuwait. Yes, as Vic says, weird that it is, very weird. So let's get into, while we're talking about air crashes, by the way, I'm just going to deflect over, but Andrew Evans, who is here, hi guys, I'm new to this channel, loved your information. Let's just read the rest of that. Nice to have you here, and wisdom on Ukraine and the Middle East when you help out. Apologies for taking so long to get here. We'll watch and listen with interest. Well, Andrew, if ever you want to join in, or you ever want to say anything, or you have an opinion of your own, this is a live and interactive show. So by all means, just jump in, just open your mic or stick the hand up, the raise hand. And of course, you're able to, welcome to the channel and welcome home. There's a place for everybody here who actually wants to know the truth. So by all means, do, as I say, join in whenever you want to. Don't feel shy, but welcome to the channel. Let's get into this. And of course, everybody here is nice and friendly as well. Let's get into this while we're talking about aeroplanes, because there's something here that nobody is talking about, and you should be. This is a Colombian military plane. Now, we have long talked to you about Ukraine and how France settled the beef that was happening in Colombia, and that Ukraine used Colombian mercenaries more than any other, including Polish and everybody else. And this is a Colombian plane that has gone down with 130 soldiers on board, and they are turning around and saying they're soldiers, but we actually know that they were on their way to France. That means they were Colombian, not so much soldiers, but they were mercenaries, and they were on their way. Let's have a look. And as far as I'm aware, there's only 1 or 2 survivors. Sean Murphy.
Sounds like a load of small arms ammunition cooking off there, Warren.
Exactly that. The problem that they have here. Remember, we showed you the actual document that showed that France had literally done a deal with the rebels in Colombia, and then of course they've been employing through their, shall we say, their private military companies, getting the soldiers of fortune out there because they had nothing to do. Suddenly, so all the Colombians went out there, and the Ukrainians used them as cannon fodder. They just got killed a little earlier this time. Nilis.
Yeah. Was that a natural accident, or was it shot down?
I don't know. I don't know on that, but we checked with our friend at an embassy, and they turned around and said yes, they were on their way to Ukraine.
And do we know which country it crashed in?
Colombia.
Well, Colombia, right. So it didn't get very far.
No, it didn't get very far at all. Rather like the rockets that were going to Diego Garcia. Lee Williams.
Question is, why would they be taking explosives on a plane for one, and two, has Ukraine got enough explosives and stuff?
They were taking ordinary weapons. That's small arms going off. If it was, shall we say, bigger explosives and everything else, you'd have a lot bigger explosives. But that sound you're hearing there, that is rounds cooking off. That is, or bullets cooking off. We call them rounds, but some people call them bullets. But that is rounds cooking off, literally, and that's why it is quite small. Let's have a little look at the USS Gerald Ford, because I know that Robert was very interested in the Gerald Ford. So we've got a little bit of footage for him. Now, the so-called fire that they had on board, of course, the damage to the back of the ship, quite extensive. And many people say, oh, that was on fire, but that was the fire, okay? People are getting this conflated. There's been 2 fires, okay? One on the Gerald Ford, which is the laundry fire, which is fine. And the damage looks quite extensive, so it might not be a laundry fire, but okay, that's fine. But the Lincoln, that was hit by a reconnaissance drone that they shot down. It wasn't bombing the boat, the Abraham Lincoln whatsoever. They shot down and that crashed and caused the extensive fire. Sean Murphy.
Oh, I just wonder if they're importing Beko washing machines from Turkey to replace the laundry machines on the carrier, Warren.
Well, the rumor, and it is a rumor, I'm going to say here, it is a complete rumor, is they turned around and said that literally that the people on board the Gerald R. Ford, the sailors, had started the fires on purpose because they were still very hacked off. That they were meant to have, they were meant to be only deployed for 6 months, and of course they'd miss birthdays, funerals, wives, and everything else. Well, don't become a sailor if you yearn for home. It's not a good life for you. And very, very simply, that they were fairly mutinous compared to, with the toilet problem and everything else. And they decided that they didn't want to stay out there any longer, so they set fire to the laundry room. But that meant 600 men, and that's telling, isn't it? 600 men sleeping on the floors. So that tells you that they don't have their full complement. 5,000. Nilis.
Yeah, I've been watching some YouTube documentaries about these aircraft carriers. They're not allowed on deck. For example, if there are airplanes on deck, the ordinary aren't allowed on deck. Many of their cabins are directly under the flight decks. So when they're trying to get to sleep, all they can hear is loud engine noises and loud noises of the catapults sending the planes off, and the catapults catching the planes. And there's a general sleep deprivation there. And and also, they're not allowed home to their. Not only have they got to stay within the hull of the ship and not allowed out, but they're not allowed to have any leave either. And I'm sure that people are just there really to either get a free. If you're in the United States military, you get your medical bills paid for life, I think, and get a career. Have something. A lot of those people are sort of like, they're sort of typical, people off the Bronx and all that sort of thing. And I don't know if it's still the same, but it used to be very racially divided, the ships, didn't it?
Life on board ship. Well, the expert on that would be Louis Bastos. Louis.
Well, for starters, it's very claustrophobic downstairs. Well, you got all the engines, the generators, the running, and the freezers, and the machines running inside the boat, plus all the communications and the talking on the radios. You can't really sleep. I mean, even on a little yacht, a 50-foot yacht, you finally imagine to fall asleep on like the third day that you've been 4 hours on, 4 hours off, 4 hours on, 4 hours off. It's a constant noise on a motor ship. Sailing boats are easier because you run generators like 1 hour every day. But ships like this, it's a constant noise of generators, engines, and those engines are big. You can go right through the hull. The problem is you can't go on deck because there's no handrails, which are safety rails for people to fall off. And I'm sure people do fall off, but they don't tell us. But there's no space. There's no space on these ships to actually breathe fresh air unless you come on deck. And this is why people get very demotivated and demoralized and anti what they're doing. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I have to say, and this is a point here. I spent 6 weeks when we went down to the Falklands on board the submarine. I hate them because I wasn't a sailor. Of course, I hated every single second of it. I was not comfortable at all. It was like being in a sardine can, and I was just waiting for the water to pour in. I didn't like it one little bit. Nillers.
Yeah, I listened to a TikTok of an ancient, not an ancient, an ex-submariner. He was a young lad, and he said you get a 6-hour shift, so you got 6 hours on and 6 hours off.
Yeah,
that's the way it works. He said
it's not good.
We used to get good food, but now it's all being privatized. The food is crap, and he was very demoralized. He said, that's getting not being able to get a proper night's sleep.
It gets to you after a while. It gets to you after a while. Honestly, 6 hours on, 6 hours off is horrible.
I can't remember if it was on this program, but it may have been the BBC that over 170 submariners been found using recreational drugs on board.
It was here. I put forward the premise that I was surprised it was that few. Because the British Army, after I left, I'm sure it had nothing to do with me, but the British Army, after I left, suddenly became a place of like a drug-infested area. It was incredible. Late 80s was really bad. Louis Vassos.
Yeah, we did 4 hours on, 4 hours off, 4 hours standby. That was with the 3 sets of crew. So 4 on, 4 off was standby. But if there's nothing happening, those poor guys are doing 6 hours, 6 on, 6 off. If there's nothing happening, it is so boring. I mean, at least on a yacht, you can trim the sails, change sails if the wind changes. But 6 hours on, 6 hours off on a motorboat is crazy.
So let's have a chat about that then, because this is, lots of people will sort of look at that and go, how bad is it? Well, it certainly does affect morale. Let's get into it a little bit, because this is not only this Here we go. We do not want to die for Israel. Literally about Iran, Trump's Iran strategy has spread amongst the troops. Doubt the possibility of an American ground operation in Iran is growing. But one service member familiar with troops in the region told the Huffington Post that the prospect would be an absolute disaster. And we'll be getting into that a little more in a second, because this is where we can start telling you. But the morale of the US troops is really, really down, especially the Marines who are on their way there. And of course, many people think there's tons of Marines on their way there. No, there isn't. There isn't a shed load of Marines that are going. There are Marines going, but the actual fighting force is going to be around about 1,500, no more than that. And of course, they're having to, shall we say, put more forward for them to go and literally whatever they have got planned, and we've got something about those plans in a minute to show you. Whatever they've got planned is not going to go well, and the troops are very, very much against it. Plane spotters have said that the elements of the 82nd Airborne, likely the Alert Brigade, have arrived in the Middle East via cargo flights from Fort Bragg and Fort Campbell. The USS Gerald R. Ford, of course, is being replaced by the USS George H.W. Bush, preparing to depart from Norfolk, and the USS Tripoli Amphibious Group, with their 1,600 Marines, are on their way, while the MEU aboard USS Boxer should arrive very, very shortly. And of course, the nonsense about we don't want to die for Israel is not nonsense at all. Military personnel have talked about a sense of vulnerability, severe stress, disappointment, and loss of illusions, to the point that they may leave the army. American troops are suffering from insufficient protection and planning, and the serious destabilizing impact of Iranian ballistic missiles and drones, which have repeatedly attacked American military facilities. And the reason this is coming apart is so far because they are saying that only 13 military personnel have died in the war and 232 have been injured. That is utter nonsense. We can tell you that CIA, military personnel, and of course military, shall we say, paramilitary personnel, or people from paramilitary companies. And what happens is, if you're in the military, they subcontract you out just in case, if you are going into an area where you could die, they subcontract you out to these paramilitary companies. Then, of course, you are a mercenary rather than you're part of a private military company rather than part of the military, and they can deny that you are there. 255 dead, 733 injured. Okay? 200, as I say, well over 200 dead, well over 700 injured. They are claiming, the Americans are claiming, 13 died and 232 have been injured. You add the CIA and the people who have been made out to be mercs into that, and a ground operation, they believe, would be an absolute catastrophe. We don't have a plan for any situation, soldiers have said, and we can't even fully protect even one land base in the theatre of military operations. Now, a top-ranking official that we spoke to said the guys don't want to die for Israel. They don't want to be political pawns. And over the past 2 weeks, they've reported the status to us of conscientious objectors 6 times. And as he said to me, I've been in the army for almost 20 years. People have never approached me like this. And he is somebody who mentors young officers. Now, given that, Mike Prisner, the executive director for the Center for Conscience and War, said in the past years, his organization received 50 to 80 applications from conscientious objectors per year. In March, there was a 1,000% increase, and at least one new military personnel contacts the organization daily. On Friday, he reported the group is processing accelerated applications for conscientious objector status from military personnel of the Army, Navy and Marines who have been informed and that they will be deployed this weekend. The increase in the number of conscientious objectors is also confirmed by Matt Howard, the co-director of the group About Face Veterans Against the War. At the same time, sources note both utter dissatisfaction and a sense of obedience among many military personnel. For reference, Americans have an analogue of the expression SZCA. We call it AWOL, which is absent without leave. Sean Murphy and then Nicholas.
Well, Warren, the problem is this MEU are basically cannon fodder, aren't they?
Yeah.
They want to put those 1,500 guys on that island. They don't care whether they're killed. They want to see what sort of response they are going to get from the Iranians. That's all it is before they decide that they will, you know, if the response is horrendous and the losses are horrendous, that they may have to rethink the boots on the ground. But they want to, they're basically, those guys are expendable as far as they're concerned, and they're using them to test the water.
Aren't they always? And of course, many people come out with nonsense like this. We've got Nicholas next.
Well, I can just recently, Scott Ritter, the ex-Royal Marine Arms Inspector, American Marine Arms Inspector, said, yeah, the only moral thing the Marine can do is apply as a conscientious objection, because this war is against the law, international law, it's against the American law, and it's against the American Constitution. And in a way, if you're going to war, you're going against those three things. He was saying that the international law is enshrined in the American Constitution, but if you're fighting for Trump is equivalent to being a traitor to America, basically.
Yeah, it does seem that these people are, shall we say, turning around and going, well, I'm not entirely sure I'm happy with this. And you're just going to get that go worse and worse and worse. Somebody else, Nicholas. Yeah. Sorry, Lee Williams.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick one. So Iran know that they are going to be heading there because they've got tolerance of everything that they're doing it in the way of everything, aircraft, boats, where they are, and everything.
Chinese
so Iran know they're going there.
Okay. Chinese have got satellite information which they are giving to Iran. They know exactly where every ship is, where every plane is. Sean Murphy?
Well, the point I was going to make, Warren, when we were talking about Marines, is it appears now that that guy who wants to run for mayor of London, Ant Middleton, who's an ex-Marine, has nailed his colours to the wall. And who's he supporting? I'll give you one guess.
Yeah, what a surprise. You see, these people, they get lots and lots of this. If you look at where, how much is, or I should say American Israeli money, or Israel, as I call it, how much of this money is floating about. It's really, really straightforward. You've only got to look. Always follow the money and look at the timing. Let's have a little look at this then with the Marines. So a contingent of around 4,500 US sailors and Marines, see how they word this, is heading to the Middle East, including an infantry battalion, landing team backed by helicopters, F-35 fighter jets, and armoured landing vehicles. The Pentagon also sped up the deployment of a similar unit, the 11th Marine Expeditionary Force from San Diego, defense officials said last week. Those Marines aren't coming for decoration, said an Israeli official, one of several who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive military and intelligence issues. Of course they did, on the subject of anonymity. Well, you don't get anonymity, I'm afraid. You have to come out if you're going to be one of those people who pokes your head above the parapet. So let's get into a bit of this then, because the military are not happy about this. And there's some good reasons why. So let's get into this. Hague Island, first of all, bad idea, bad idea. This is Hague Island up here, just showing you the full map. So here's the Gulf, and you're talking around 1,600 kilometers to Harg Island. So you've got to sail all the way around there, and then suddenly you've got to do all sorts of crazy things to be able to get those people, how can I put it, to literally go and do what they want. MPIM wants a word, MP?
What if Cog Island's all a distraction?
That's exactly what we're about to discuss in a second. Harg Island, by the way, or Carg Island, whichever you want to call it, is not what you call a viable option, and nobody in their right mind would have any bar of trying to take this place over. It is a very small island. Let's very quickly, if you didn't watch the show last night, quickly take you through it. If you try and sail through there, you're going to get blown out of the water. You're going to get attacked all the way in there, all that way there. If you try and sail across from, say, somewhere like Kuwait or whatever, that might be an option, but again, they can still pick you up. And Harg Island is very flat. There is very few hiding spaces indeed. And of course, it'd be quite easy for the Americans to take it with a large land force. But then, of course, you've got the trouble of being sitting duck for drones, for missiles and everything else. And as MPIM was just saying, that is something that is very much along the lines of, shall we say, everybody will turn around and go, oh, that's where they're going to go. No, they're not. What was discussed was 3 or 4 options, and they are Harg Island is one of them. The next one is this place. Have a look at this. This is what the fight is all over, and this we can tell you exclusively. We have got this from both our sources, one in the Pentagon and one who is very, very close to the State Department, and a massive row has broken out between the two. Have a look at this. So this is the island that we are talking about. It's called Keshem. And of course, many, many people will turn around and go, what's the significance of this? Well, it's about twice the size of Kuwait. There it is. And of course, you've got Larak Shari there. You've got the little island of Hormuz there. And you've got Hangam Al Qadim there. There is very much an entire town, should we say, there. There are about 1,500 people who are there. It's got its own airport, and it's got many, many people living on it. So it would take a much bigger contingent. That's Keshem International Airport, as they call it, or Keshem Airport. I wouldn't say it's that international. But of course, that is somewhere they could then really keep a very strong and very close eye on the Straits of Hormuz and anything going through there. Trouble is to actually capture it, to hold it, as you can see, and its close proximity to literally the Straits of Hormuz. You can see from there it would be incredibly difficult. Now, the State Department want this. They have the warm ones for this, and the problem is the American troops and the Pentagon do not want to be doing this. They do not want any part of this whatsoever. They are literally turning around and saying that this is a death trap, and this would be as bad as it gets if they are asked to go and take this island. They've literally turned around and said that it is going to take many, many more troops than they actually get. And there's a closer aerial shot of it. Now, Keshem, of course, would be ideal for seeing things through the Straits of Hormuz. But when you look at where it's situated, this is really, really easy for you to be picked off. Now, there are mountains there. There are also lots and lots of Iranians there. So first of all, you've got to subdue them. And once again, you are sailing into that area. You're sailing into the area, so you're not really alleviating the chances of getting hit there. And of course, you're at the mercy of drones and everything else. Now, they could parachute people in. They literally, if they put Marines on that island, it's got to be part of a much, much larger invasion force. And when the Pentagon and the State Department had a chat, and this was only 2 days ago, and literally they've turned around and said it's unworkable. Trump wants to go in there with no more than 10,000 troops. They have said, the military have turned around and said, to hold it, to be able to hold it successfully under the amount of firepower that they would come under, they would literally need to mobilize around about 50,000 troops and of course, should we say, a much bigger flotilla of boats and much bigger drops of weapons, that the organisation of this would take months and months and months to get ready. And it is not one of those where you can just sail in there, stick a few guys down, 5,000 guys down, and suddenly hold on to it. They have said it would be a massacre. And of course, it is being pushed quite hard by the State Department. Marco Rubio has finally listened to what's being said and has spoken to Trump. This is why we've got Trump trying to put out peace feelers. Louis Bascom.
Yes, I agree as well. You need at least 50,000 top of the range troops, not greenhorns. And to get inside that little lagoon, which is west of the Strait of Hormuz, you're going to get pummeled. And not only that, the Iranian would mine that whole island, get everybody out, lock all the gas pipes, and mine the whole island. It would be like Vietnam all over again.
Yes, that's exactly what literally they're turning around and saying. And they're saying, well, the troops aren't the same as they were before. You have to remember that in the 60s, very much there was no internet, nothing going about. So a lot of troops didn't know what they were going into. The only people who were actually being able to tell you was the old sweats that were coming back. And that is a complete nonsense because, of course, now we have the internet. Now, what the idea that they put forward, the State Department, was to use bombers to level everything, rather like, as they tried to do in Vietnam. And they are, and literally, they turned around and said that we could actually, in attempting to hold on, and remember that island is twice the size of Bahrain, okay? It is not small. Attempting to hold on to it would be an absolute nightmare. And over time, of course, they will be dragged into a long war, and over time, of course, many, many American troops would die, and they are turning around and saying that it would cost thousands of troops to hold on to it. Nillis.
Yeah, is that 50,000 frontline fighting troops? Because if that is,
yeah, they'd need 50,000 troops. That's including people who can operate air defense systems, people who can operate artillery. All the shall we say, the people that go with fighting troops.
I can't remember what the ratio is, but I know you got to have a lot of people doing the logistics behind that.
Yes, yeah.
You got to have the medic, and you got to have people.
Yeah, you've got to have the medical. You've got to have the logistical. You've got to have the tactical. I mean, you've got to have everything. For every one soldier, you're going to need about 6 people to back him up.
Yeah, so that 50,000 would quite easily become 300,000, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're putting 50,000 troops on an island like that, I'd say only 10,000 of them are going to be what you call frontline fighting Marines.
All right.
1 in 5 is going to be a fighter. I mean, you've got cooks, you've got all sorts.
Yeah, you've got the cooks and the bottle washers, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got the shed heads, the military intelligence. Then you've got your cooks, and then you've got and then all of a sudden, all sorts of people have to try all sorts and do dual roles. And ask anybody who was in Vietnam, who was in Quai Son, or I'm trying to think of the place where the French were right at the very start of the war when they decided they were going to build this military air base in the middle of nowhere and try and invite the North Vietnamese in. Can't think of it off the top of my head, but they got something Diem. It was a big airfield that they called Diem, and they got the French got absolutely pasted in there, and that was their idea was to attract all the North Vietnamese there. North Vietnamese brought up artillery from all sides, popped up out of nowhere, and even though they took quite massive casualties, the French, by the end of it, were completely overrun, and of course they lost hundreds and hundreds of troops. Louis Baston.
We mustn't forget that the combat engineers have to go in there and set up hospitals as well.
Yeah.
There has to be hospitals for the troops. And knowing that kind of place, for 50 troops, you need a very large combat engineer group to go in and build hospitals and trenches and bridges.
Yeah, yeah, you do. It was it was called Dien Bien Phu, and if you haven't seen it, go and have a look. The battle took place in 1954, and it was literally they put an airfield out in the middle of nowhere, as if to say, "Come on, then, come and get us," and they did. Sean Murphy.
Well, I remember on Desert Storm, or Operation Granby as it was called in the UK, we set up our own hospital as a unit, but we did have some engineer support. People put, to bring in running water and toilets and things like that. You have to have them.
You've got to have medics, yeah? You've got to have medics.
The medics set it all up, but we went from a field hospital, which is like a 200 bed, to a general hospital, and the designation was just changed, and all they done was brought in more and more ISOs of tentage and equipment to make it like a 600 bedded hospital. So it was like the size of a general hospital, and had all the departments that you would find in your local general hospital. Yeah, obviously not CT and MRI scanners, but everything else.
They've got 4 chances here, and that's it. There are 4 things that can happen from here. So you've got negotiate. So you're looking. US has got no clear plan, and this is what everybody is panicking about. And literally the people I've spoken to have said there's negotiations, but the choice is very unlikely. As bringing the parties together after Iran was attacked twice during talks is difficult, especially given the demands that Iran will want, and America will try to make out they've won it, but of course that won't happen. Ending the war, the US simply declare victory like in June 2025, and they say Iran's nuclear program is obliterated when it's not. And then, of course, we're back in this position again in the next couple of weeks. Within the next year, but such a move is going to anger the Israelis and leave the Straits of Hormuz closed. They can continue the war with sustained airstrikes, which intensifies economic pressure on the US and Israel, while further Iranian retaliation depletes the air defense interceptors in the Gulf nations and Israel. Or they can escalate, and that is the US then target Iran's power plants, which Trump has already been warned of. Deploy troops to Karg Island or Hem, or attempt to seize Iran's enriched uranium in a bid to, as they say, escalate to de-escalate, which of course is nonsense. And that means putting American soldiers and Gulf states at even greater risk and exacerbating the energy crisis if those Gulf oil and gas facilities are destroyed. So none of these options may actually end the war. And given that Trump started it on the behalf of Israel, there is no easy way to end it. None. Sean Murphy. Sean?
States here.
Say again, buddy.
The Straits of Hormuz will be controlled by me and the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
And he's just put that out.
Yeah, have a look at this.
Thank you.
What about the Strait of Hormuz? Who's going to be in control of that?
That'll be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By who?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in
Me
control
and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look, and there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. They're really starting off. There's automatically a regime change. But we're dealing with some people that I find to be...
No, that's a personnel change. Personnel change and regime change is a totally different thing. Let me just make that very, very clear to you, Donald. Because you kill one person doesn't mean you've killed the ideology or the people that are backing them. Okay? It's a really, really salient point that you need to learn. The regime is not changed or the government is not overthrown. I always hate that when they say regime change because it actually makes you think. And of course, we have lots and lots of Iran is still underground. Have a look at this. There we are. Sean Murphy.
It's like we've been saying, Warren. Iran has had years and years to prepare for this, and they have prepared for it.
Yeah.
There's no way the Americans can actually bomb or get at those underground stocks and those underground tunnels because they're buried. They're so deep in the mountains.
Yeah, they are. They are. And here's where you have a problem. Now, you know that we have good Chinese contacts. Very simply, the Chinese are impressed by the amount, and it takes quite a bit to impress them, to be honest with you, Sean. And they are impressed by the amount of work that Iran have managed to, and what Iran have managed to achieve in the space. I mean, they've been doing it quietly anyway. And of course, they were caught short the first time. And of course, they've learned from that. But they're quite willing to take the casualties. What you have to remember, and we said this last night, but just in case anybody is watching for the first time, these are people who, during the Iran-Iraq war, walked into minefields. Andrew Evans says, what is the chance for, and do you think of Iran's rockets going as far as, say, Fairfield Air Base in the UK? Absolutely zero. That was put out by the Israelis, and the whole idea is, first of all, to try and limit, as America wants to do. Well, it was America telling Israel, really, that America want to limit the range of these rockets so that it can't fire them at Israel. That was part and parcel of it. And, of course, to try and get Britain to move into the war. And, of course, Britain had turned around. It happened the day after. The attack on Diego Garcia happens the day after UK publicly say they can use their airfield. In reality, Andrew, what they've been doing is they've been using those airfields to target people in Yemen and in Iran for the last 3 years. So all it was Keir Starmer, all this play between Badenoch and everything's complete nonsense. They've been at this for years and years and years. All they've done is just publicly told them. So they had this thing about Diego Garcia, Andrew, and Diego Garcia is 3,700 kilometers away, when Akrotiri is just over 1,000 kilometers away. If you're going to use somewhere to bomb somewhere, you use Akrotiri. And by the same token, if Iran haven't got the missiles, the range on the ones that were launched were medium range ballistic missiles, and of course they can't travel any more than around 2,000 kilometers. Akrotiri is the easiest place to hit. So absolutely no false flag. They cannot reach London. They can't reach Berlin. They can't reach Paris. I hope that answers the question. Lee Williams.
All I was going to say is, obviously, I know China could, and so could North Korea. But anyway, what I was saying is, what's the actual event of how have they got as many bombs and missiles as, say, the UK or, let's say, America in Iran, the undercover?
Yeah, absolutely they have. What you have to remember is America have been very, very stupid or shall we say, not careful. And the military geniuses who turned around and warned Trump and the State Department about this, who were at the Pentagon, got fired for it when they said we haven't got the missiles. Tel Aviv is almost completely bare of anything to fire in the air because they've been using $4 million missiles to knock down $20,000 drones. Now, you do the math. It doesn't take long. And of course, you have to remember that this is the thing that they don't get. Is Iran can, right, the Soviet Union can bang out these Quran drones. They can bang out 1,000 a week. 1,000 1,000 a week that they can bang out. Okay. When you look at how many Patriot missiles America make, the PAC-2 or the PAC-3, they are currently making 850 of those a year. A year. So you don't know if that drone's flying over, whether it's a dummy or it's carrying a payload. Okay? So you've got to knock it out of the air. So you fire 3 or 4 of these missiles. How long do you think it takes you? Now multiply that by 11 bases or 14 bases that America have within 1,000 kilometers. Okay? So 14 times, say you fire 10 in a whole day. Okay? So that's 1,400. That's 1,400. So you're 500 down in one day. In one day for the whole of that area, and that's without supplying Israel. You're 500 down on that day for that one particular day because there's 850 going to be made. So you're 550 down straight away, and that's going to be every single day. So your stockpile just goes boom, nillers.
Yeah, what really astounded me was that the Chinese have got factories that can turn out 4,200,000 trade drones a year.
Yes.
And the thing is, with the Western industrial military complex, it's become so corrupted. Everything is focused on profits. That
just a quick question, Nicholas. Quick question, Nicholas, before you go on. Did you see the video that we were sent by the Chinese? That we managed to get from the Chinese, and we showed you the underground facility and how big it was.
Was this in China?
Yes.
Was that yesterday? Because I remember.
No. This was a few months ago. We showed a video of literally the Chinese production line underground, and it's literally like 3 or 4 kilometers long.
I think I did see it, but it's always nice to be reminded of that as well.
Yeah.
And the Western logistical supply chain is so corrupted.
Yes.
They're milking the publics really of these countries for all they can, but they don't get that in the countries that support Iran. And I'm sure if Iran ran out of missiles, you'd get North Korea, Russia, and China offering them replenishment supplies. And we saw just a few, I think it was last week, a whole trainload of, well, not trainload, but
North Korea offered Iran a nuke, and Russia and China went, no. So North Korea have got more missiles than absolutely anyone. That's why nobody's messing about with them. And he's looking for someone to play with.
We saw these convoys of lorries coming in from, I think, Turkmenistan, wasn't it?
Turkmenistan, yeah.
Into, I don't know what they had in them. I think Iran's self-sufficient in food, so it must have been something else.
Here's the thing, Nicholas. Okay, when we look at if we take a standard drone, okay, that can travel 1,000 kilometers in America, each one of those that can travel 1,000 kilometers and carry a certain payload costs so much more compared to what the Russians and the Chinese can make. It's a massive difference.
I was astounded when he told us the Russian artillery shell cost $2,000 and the NATO one costs $45,000. So there's a big
Exactly
difference.
that. Yeah.
And
And here's the thing, because the bankers have got to have their bit, and you're getting ripped off. And look, the American Patriot missile system didn't take down one Scud rocket, not one. And you know how clunky the Scuds were. And the American Patriot missile system has a failure rate of anywhere between 6 to 9%. So that is 1 in 12 rockets will go and hit a building in your own city. You don't want that. And you're paying $3.5 million to $4 million per rocket for that.
Is it 15% failure rate?
Anywhere between 6 to 9%, but on the THAAD missiles, there's a 15% failure rate. Yeah, anywhere between 12 to 15%. So just get this, Nicholas, right? You buy this wonderful Patriot missile system from America, 1.1 billion fully loaded with rockets, and you have got 48 in these 6 launchers. Okay, 48 of these rockets in all, 8 per launcher. So you've got 6. You've got 6 launchers firing 8 of these things. Roughly, one from every one of those launchers is going to go wrong. And you're paying $4 million to bomb your own city.
Yeah. Well, in a way, the WikiLeaks man was right. Ashan's was right. Yeah, everything that's happening in the West is a money laundering operation.
Yes.
And we're going to see the fulfillment of Cole, Schwab's prophecy. You're going to own nothing and be, well, potentially happy.
You don't want them too lethal, Nicholas. You don't want everybody to die because nobody's going to buy anything then.
No, but you're going to drain. You're going to put the.
Of course.
We're talking about the American economy. It's gone 39 trillion into debt now, and
I mean, you've seen Nicholas. You've seen artillery shells. We've shown you that have travelled 10 yards, and they're stuffed with straw.
Yeah, we saw some nice mortar shells that did that as well. Pop.
Exactly that. We've shown you these things. And this mortar shell has cost £4,500 and it's stuffed with straw.
Yeah,
£4.5 for a mortar shell.
No, I haven't heard of anybody being prosecuted for selling those.
You're not going to be. Not going to bite the hand that feeds you. Yeah, it's one of them, Nicholas. Here you go. Can I have those? Here we go. It is quite incredible. Mark Newman says there, Patriot missile systems have a 50% success rate. And do you know where they have a 0% success rate? Nicholas?
In Israel?
Hypersonic missiles. They haven't managed to bring one down. Not one. Not one.
You do that with Jar Marmalade, according to Mrs. Zelensky.
Yeah. But you look at, and here's the problem, that America have supplied 2 of these JASSM missiles to Saudi Arabia to fire at the Yemenis every single day for the last 2 years. So think about that. And how much they have given to Ukraine in terms of weapons. The cupboard's bare and it's going to run out. And Trump knows it and he's scrambling for an off-ramp. And at this moment in time, give the Iranians their due. They're going, no, you don't. We're going to make sure that this never happens again. You know? And Mark On's saying tungsten carbides, £100 per kilo a minute, £100,000 per ton. Scrap metals at sky high. If you go to Ukraine, you get all the scrap metal you need. Half of the tanks, the Bradleys, these wonderful American armored personnel carriers, these APCs, Challenger tanks. The German tanks, they said, were Ukrainian because they were that poor coming off the assembly line. They performed that poorly in the field. As soon as they left the assembly line, the Germans went, no, not our tanks, they're Ukrainian tanks. Yet they were German tanks because they were just getting blown up very, very quickly. Tanks are now obsolete in a war, apart from clearing a place out that doesn't have drones. And drones are the coming things. It's like all these idiots who said, oh, you lose 3 men for for 3 attackers for every defender. Not anymore, you don't. You just fly a drone in there and kill them. It's a really, really straightforward thing. And of course, you remember that when we went to the Chinese embassy, we got to see these drones that have sensors on them, and they flew them through a bamboo forest and then straight into this trench. It's just incredible. And you want to go and take on and the Chinese are being lined up next, Nillis. That's going to be you think this is a rude awakening. Wait till they try and take on China.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to have to delay China for several more years on.
Yeah, because if this carries on the way it's going on, and of course then everybody starts to feel the pinch. But eventually what happens is the Gulf states go, well, you can't protect us. But even though they are owned by America, Saudi Arabia, we know that Saudi Arabia back terrorists just as much as America and Israel do. That 80% of the world's terrorists, the world terrorism is from Sunnis. That's an absolute fact. You go and ask any CIA guy that.
Well, I would say what Sheikh Ibrahim Hussein says. They're not Sunnis. They're Anglo-Zionist Muslims.
Yeah, absolutely that. Talking of that, let's get into Britain a bit then, because this is quite hilarious. The Dragon's on its way. This is the British ship, which one day will eventually get there. The Dragon is on its way. It's had to put into port in France and also Italy, and will be putting into port in Greece before it actually gets to its destination. So there we go, Robert. I know that you were asking about the Dragon and is it underway? There we go. Well, the only thing that Britain that we will say in Britain is it's on the way. It's on the way. But there we are. It's actually had to put into port in 2 places, and of course, hopefully, when Robert's watching that later, Louis Bastos.
If the Dragon is on his way, he has to go through the Red Sea.
It's a very slow Dragon. It's not. It's going to. I'll tell you where it's going. It's going to Akrotiri.
Okay.
Yeah, but it left quite a while ago, and it's taking a long time to get there. Let's put it that way. Something else that you ought to be aware of in Great Britain. You've seen the ambulances, and of course they've gone up in smoke. Don't forget that very shortly, of course, they will find one of these right next to the ambulance. And this, of course, is an Iranian passport. We always find a perfectly pristine passport when something's been blown up or burnt down, don't we? This is, for me, it's about as telltale as you like, Nillers.
Yeah, it's well, I would thought it's a false flag and I think one of the reasons for that is that many Israelis want to leave Israel at the moment. They probably don't want them coming to Western. They're probably trying to stop that flow and just have a few incidents in Europe and put out that propaganda. And also, they're also going for a civil war, aren't they, between the Muslims and the rest of the population? Yes. Divide and rule.
Absolutely. And we got Andrew Evans turning around saying, I'm not sure Trump isn't deliberately destroying America, Israel to bring about a major change in the world. I'd love to believe that. Unfortunately, the evidence is very much the other way. But the good thing about this show, Andrew, is everybody's entitled to their opinion and nobody gets shouted at for it, which is brilliant. Lee Williams.
I was just going to add, when I mentioned it, I think yesterday, when I'm saying that some of them travelling to Cyprus, you're talking a lot with just caps on, nothing with the band on the head. That it was done by ship, not by plane. So how would they get away with that? Just letting them get to another country like Cyprus?
Yeah, they won't be able to get away with it. That's the problem. That's the problem, and they're being stopped from travelling. So it is one of those. You stay here and you die along with everybody else. And of course, they don't care. It's when look the people who sell the weapons, the politicians, the people who actually run the thing. They don't care how many kids die. They don't care how many of you die, and they don't care if their own country people die. They're making money. That's it. and they're getting control. So far, the Ukraine war has cost $1.5 trillion to Europe. 1.5 trillion. That's unbelievable. But it's true. And they'll keep supplying weapons. As long as you want to kill people, they'll keep supplying it. Nicholas.
Well, just think of what infrastructure you could build with that, with hospitals, schools, roads, railways. You could have really invested in Europe and reindustrialized Europe with that sort of money.
Nicholas will not have any of that talk. Not only is that subversive, it's anti-Semitic.
Right,
how dare you suggest that people use money to improve their own country? That's disgraceful.
I apologize.
I don't want to hear any more of that seditious talk. There we go. That's a quality point made by Nicholas there. Let's get into this. This is troubling. Germany and Japan have formed an anti-communist pact against the Soviet Union back in the old days. They are now forming a pact. Germany and Japan have decided to form a military pact. Anybody else getting nervous? It is slightly troubling. We've seen this happen before. It didn't end well. Let's put a sock in that straight away. Iran have said something really nice. This was on a supermarket. Please, if you have no money, take whatever you need at the end of the war. Bring the money. That's a really lovely sentiment and a lovely thing for them to say to their people. And of course, there are people. Just goes to show that there are wonderful people out there. Kavoy Rog. Let's talk about this. We have now found out, and of course, we know that Kavoy Rog has been hit twice before. The hotels have been hit, and Kavoy Rog, shall we say, has lost many mercs and quite a few NATO members when it's been smashed by the Russians. And of course, this is Zelensky's hometown. And of course, we know that they're going to keep doing this, and it's going to keep happening. But the problem that we have, and it is a massive problem, of course, is that Zelensky, of course, is a lunatic for trying to keep this Kavoy Rog pipeline of trainers and stuff going. Well, this time a train has been hit, and there are US personnel. Now, we are being told that they are mercs, and there is at least 30 dead where they hit a train full of these mercs that were being transferred. So there you go. There are at least 30 mercs dead that they are telling us. So we're going to see more and more of that. The whole of, should we say, Dubai is in mourning. The man who ran OnlyFans has died at a very early age of cancer. And of course, this guy, let's say OnlyFans isn't the best thing that somebody has put to the world. He died very rich. And of course, the whole of Dubai will be in mourning, and the Ukrainians. I believe he was Ukrainian, or part Ukrainian, part something else. But of course, a very unscrupulous and very immoral guy who got rich off of women selling their bodies online. I can't find it in my heart to praise this guy because for me, he's a pretty horrible individual. Let's have a little look at while we're talking about Iran and of course Ukraine. Let's have a little look at this.
Are we directly talking with Iran?
Those uranium power plants. How is that different from what Russia has been doing in Ukraine by hitting Ukrainian?
Well, I think it's a lot different. And if you look at the nuclear weapons that they wanted to have, that they wanted to possess, a lot of things are different. I'm not a fan of what Russia's doing either, just so you understand. All right. But it's a lot different. You're talking about a country that has been evil for 47 years. They've been horrible.
There we go. So we're sort of talking, it's okay when America do it, but not when Russia do it. And let's have a little look at this night warfare drone. This is from Rybar, and it will give you a good idea of what's going on to do with everything that's going on at the moment. Have a look at this.
For a long time, night was the infantry's ally in the SMO zone. During darkness, the overall intensity of combat decreased, allowing for a chance to catch their breath. Darkness was a powerful factor in concealment. Under cover of darkness, personnel could be rotated at their positions, the wounded evacuated, and ammunition and provisions delivered. At the same time, trained units equipped with thermal imaging and night vision devices could effectively conduct offensive operations at night. When the enemy relaxed their vigilance and caution, night assaults were successful. Vehicle crews equipped with high-quality thermal imaging sights could also operate effectively in the dark. They became less visible to the enemy without night vision devices and could more easily engage targets. But everything changed with the UAV revolution. A multitude of drones with thermal imaging cameras appeared in the skies. First, the AFU deployed a large number of them, and then the Russian side also introduced night versions of the FPV drones, Upir, Knyaz Vandal Novgorodsky, and other devices. This changed the rules of the game. While darkness had previously been a factor in stealth, with the advent of numerous drones with thermal imaging cameras, moving at night on the front lines became just as dangerous as during the day. Because of this, night assault operations have largely become a thing of the past. Drones with thermal imaging cameras hover over the battlefield, capturing every movement. While attacking in the dark, once allowed for surprise, this has now disappeared. Today, one can remain undetected on the battlefield at night using special ponchos that conceal thermal radiation. However, this is not a panacea. Over time, they heat up, making the soldier visible to drones. The drone revolution in the Central Military District has completely changed the nature of combat operations. Drones haven't eliminated infantry and other branches of the armed forces, but they have brought about a radical shift in tactics. Without the acquisition of high-quality UAVs and a comprehensive approach to developing unmanned forces, survival in modern warfare is impossible.
Now, somebody sent me a message saying, how dare you suggest that these people that got killed were American mercs in the train. They were just people dressed up on their way to a fancy dress party. I'm sure you're right. Of course, we do see lots of stuff like that, don't we? There's a couple of other news stories that I want to try and show you here. Literally, the New York airport, of course, you've all heard about the fire truck and the Air Canada flight that was involved in an accident. Well, here's the video of it. As you can see, the truck is going across, and here comes the plane on the left, and suddenly the truck, honestly, the truck didn't see him. The driver of the truck didn't see that dirty great big plane. He didn't look left and see a dirty great big plane coming along the runway. Obviously not. It seems an absolutely bizarre thing, doesn't it? And that maybe sometimes happens. You get too many lights and everything else. Something absolutely awful happened, of course, and this happened. This is a floating bridge. Sorry, mate, I didn't see your plane. Yeah, the floating bridge in Bangladesh. Now, 4 children and 2 adults died during the course of this accident. So if you are one of those people who's slightly squeamish, do look away now because obviously it's quite a horrific, quite a horrible thing to happen. Always amazes me, absolutely amazes me that these people, should we say, don't, what's the word I'm looking for here? Don't use common sense and possibly not go and do that. It does seem a very strange and very bizarre thing. And our hearts go out to the people who have lost any loved ones. There is a couple of other things that I did want to talk about because, of course, people turn around and say, what is the difference about anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism? And some people still don't quite get it. Well, in the West, sort of like what the Zionists and Israel do are condoned by the fact that labeling any critic is an anti-Semite, and the approach obscures the fact that the Zionists promote anti-Semitism literally to legitimize their claim. So what's the difference? Well, let's get into that then very simply. So the collective West, which unconditionally supports the war of destruction against Iran, claims that anyone who raised their voice against the Zionists and Israel is an anti-Semite who must be punished. The strategy of the West is not only malicious, but it ultimately leads to precisely what the anti-Semitism label purports to want to prevent, with all political and increasingly legal power, namely the perception of Israeli policy as a crime of Judaism. Anyone who pursues Israeli policies in this way is unable to separate the wheat from the chaff, and it's almost inevitably drawn towards anti-Semitic attitudes in the uncritical political debate taking part in the West. And the tendency is fueled by the deliberately vague definitions of anti-Semitism, Judaism, and Zionism, as well as the distinctions between them. Now, these definitions, which blur the boundaries of these concepts, form the very basis on which the West acts with all its might and passes judgment, particularly in Germany. And so the circle closes. The Zionists need anti-Semitism so they can portray themselves as victims and to use it to promote and achieve their criminal goals. A few thoughts on the topic to get the blood boiling amongst Zionists and unleash the uneducated fools in the West. Now, Judaism, Zionist Israel Judaism. So Judaism is the sum of culture, history, religion, and traditions of Jewish people who's existed for about 4,000 years. Zionism is a political movement that's existed in an organized form since the first Zionist Congress in Basel, as we showed you yesterday, in 1897. This movement has nothing to do with Judaism. It was founded by the Viennese journalist Theodor Herzl, a completely non-religious man. The original goal of this political movement was established to proclaim the state of Israel, which was achieved in 1948. Today, the goal of Zionism is the creation of a greater Israel, which is intended to dominate most of the Middle East. What will be the goal after that? Well, in 1896, Theodor Herzl made the following statement: the anti-Semites will become our most dependable friends. The anti-Semitic countries are allies. The notion that Jews are under threat is a central element of the Zionist master plan. The Zionists hide behind anti-Semitism and Judaism in order to carry out their crimes. Another goal they pursue is merging of Zionism and Judaism. The reason is simple. Many people have, rightly so, reservations about criticizing Jewish people, not only because of the Holocaust, but because of the countless pogroms that took place in nearly every European country. And by merging Zionism and Judaism, the Zionists create a shield, an excellent one at that, to protect themselves. As long as Western politicians cannot distinguish and don't want to, and are bought and paid for, and will not distinguish between Zionism, Israel, and the greater Israel as Zionist projects on the one hand, and the perfectly ordinary Judaism and Orthodox Christians on the other, and do not seem willing to do so. Judaism is going to lose, and the Zionist criminals who hide behind it are going to win. Who are the Zionists? Well, the US Congress supports Israel as a Zionist project with approximately $5 billion annually. Furthermore, the US provides Israel with every form of political support for war, genocide, land theft, and a complete enslavement of its people. In addition to Adelson's well-known large donation to Trump, hordes of American politicians are bought off en masse so that they speak and vote in Israel's interest. In the current 119th Congress, the US Congress, 532 members, only, when they do the Jewish representation and everything else, you have to have a little look at how much is flowing, shall we say, into their pocket. So let's get into it a little bit, and it may help a little bit here. 32 Jews are represented. Nevertheless, the US Congress, which consists of 87% Christians, has voted staunchly in favor of Zionism since 1948. To secure a majority in Congress, 50% plus one vote, so 266 plus one is required. Thus, at least 235 non-Jews, together with 32 Jews, determine the Zionist policy of the United States, bringing the non-Jewish share of Zionists in the US Congress to a staggering 88%. Israel is nothing more than an American outpost through which the US controls the Middle East. The question of whether Israel controls the US or the US controls and manipulates Israel is irrelevant from a geopolitical perspective. Together, they form a power bloc designed to subjugate one of the richest and the most sensitive regions in the world. Distinguishing who dominates only becomes relevant when considering how to neutralize the alliance. So what do Jews say about Zionism and Israel? Well, in the West, especially in Europe, people are completely unaware that there are many Jews who absolutely despise and oppose Zionism and the Israeli project. Non-Jews, on the other hand, such as the German Chancellor Merz, are pursuing a Zionist agenda, regardless of the consequences. This goes so far that Friedrich Merz, unconditionally and without reservation, promotes and supports an Israeli and US attack on Iran, claiming it necessary. His hate monger, Maria Agnes Strack-Zimmerman, who works for the arms industry, supports every war as part of her job, has no qualms whatsoever about stroking hatred on a Nazi scale, and said a few days ago on the public broadcaster Ard, Iran is a plague on this earth. And this woman is absolutely horrific. Go and check her out. People have absolutely no sense or idea that in terms of communication, we've once again reached the level of Hitler and Goebbels, and ultimately, once again, at the expense of the Jews, because many Jews who oppose Zionism are being persecuted anew for something they cannot change, which is the fact that they are Jewish. And there are two Jewish speakers who assess the issue from a religious perspective, and an Israeli journalist who touches on a sore point. Now, Rabbi Abraham Silverstein is a leading Jewish scholar who advocates for animal rights within Judaism and serves on the executive director of the Voice of Rabbi. He is known for his critical stance on the biblical justification for land claims in the Middle East. I want to be clear, he said, that violence against anyone is never allowed. Let me explain further. The Zionist government cannot sustain itself without anti-Semitism. Zionists need Jewish people to live in constant fear in order for their existence as so-called Jewish saviors to look true. Zionists will always use such words as Holocaust and pogroms to describe incidents that don't even apply to Jewish people, but strictly to the Israeli government. Also, Zionists are working day and night to merge the identity of Judaism and Zionism into one. And this is where we in Britain need to separate this out. They need Jews to be held responsible for their actions, or else they cannot use anti-Semitism as a shield. They always say it's all about the Jewish people, not Israel, to get us to pay. We see this in the streets of Europe and now also in America. It must be stopped. Zionists are working for their selfish agendas at the expense of these people. Now, Gideon Levy is an Israeli journalist who is a vocal critic of Israeli policy and condemns the widespread belief among Israelis that they are superior to the rest of the world. He sarcastically criticized the following points. If Israel are the chosen people, Israelis are the great victims, the only victims, and Palestinians are subhuman, then obviously makes them superior. Not only does the West give the criminal Zionists carte blanche to commit genocide and wage illegal wars, acts that under the Nuremberg criteria would be punishable by death. It also finances these malicious deeds at the expense of taxpayers who are driven into poverty as a result of these wars. And anyone at all who speaks up against this is labelled an anti-Semite and ostracised by people who don't even realise that anti-Semitism is actually the very lifeblood of Zionism. Nillis. Oh, Nillis has got his hand up.
I would put it a lot I would put it a lot simpler. I would say Semitism and the Jewish people were that step and platform in which allowed Christ, the Messiah, to come into the world. Whereas Zionism is that platform and step which will allow Antichrist or the Dajjal to come into the world.
Yeah, that's getting into the religious aspect of it. I I'm trying to
Well, for me,
separate it to say to people, look, there's Orthodox Jewish people and there's Zionism in Israel on the other side. And we need to make that distinction.
oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
That
As
was
we
the
know,
whole point of me reading out my monologue there.
yeah, some of the most persecuted people in Israel are actually Orthodox Jews, aren't
Orthodox Jews, they're getting beaten all the time. And let me be absolutely clear here so that we make this absolutely clear for anybody who's watching. Zionism is a disgraceful, horrible thing that is invented by the state of Israel to protect themselves and shield themselves from the horrific practices they carry out, which are the same things that the Jews suffered in the 1930s and the 1940s. Okay? Is Jewish people or Judaism, the Jewish, Orthodox Jewish people are wonderful, nice, lovely, peaceful people. And before 1840, until Great Britain got involved, they lived peacefully alongside Christians and Muslims. But these Christian Zionists, okay, that call themselves Christians are nothing of the sort. They hide behind Judaism, they hide behind Christianity, and they commit absolutely horrific things against the Arab world. Now, I'm not saying for 1 second that there aren't Arab lunatics out there and Muslim lunatics out there that don't do the same thing. But they don't get away with it anywhere near as much as these people do. These people get away with it all the time by saying Holocaust and everything else. Now, the religious aspect of that, Nilis is right. The religious aspect is a slightly different thing. And of course, there are sects within, should we say, Zionism, where these people are just as crazy. And there are sort of like these mad people. And the question of religion also pops up. But let's be clear with it, on a non-religious side here, because Zionism is not religious, but it pretends to be. Zionism has nothing to do with religion, because there are not many religions out there that literally turn around and say, it is okay for you to go and kill kids. It just doesn't exist. And anybody who says it does is taking the teachings of that book, whichever book it might be, the Talmud, or, you know, the Quran or whatever. It's literally taking the teachings of that book and using it for your own ends. Horrible, horrible people hide behind religion. Jim.
Sorry, Warren. I just wanted to point out that the Zionists have been trying this conflation for such a long time.
Yes.
And the irony of it is, when we go back to the 7th of October, these people that were mown down by the Israeli helicopter, they were coming from where? They were coming from a night, what you call it?
A concert, yeah.
A concert,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they forget that that was the beginning of the Sabbath, Friday night.
Yeah.
And on Saturday morning, these guys coming home. But they didn't mention that. It was Jews that were killed.
Exactly. Here's the thing, Jim. The Zionists do not care about how many Israelis they kill. If you've got to die for the greater cause, that's exactly what you will do. These people are as bad as the monsters we had. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's very true, because even Ben Gurion had said that we did a deal to get into Palestine with the Nazis.
Yeah.
But it's going to be like a bump on the road, you know, a flat tire on the road. The rest of the Jews will forget it very quickly, and we just move on. So they just use the Judaism to get to the objective.
Exactly that. And it is one of them almost, isn't it, where they go, whatever works. Would that be fair, Jim?
Yeah, that'd be very fair. They just grab anything to make it. If it works, we're going to use it. They don't care how it hurts somebody or anything.
Yeah,
or the institutions, you know.
It is quite a staggering thing when you look at it. And I mean, there are many people out there who have to sort of look at everything in you know, you look at it in the round, don't you, and go, you know, it's going to, these people are going to stop at some stage. They're not going to stop. I genuinely believe this, Jim, and anybody's free to disagree. But I believe that the Americans, with using the Zionism or Judeo-Christian nonsense that they come out with, you can't put Zionists in with Judeo-Christians. They're just monsters. These are people who use that word. I believe the whole idea is to empty the whole of the Middle East and have all the oil, have all the minerals and everything else, and that playground, if you like, to make it just the rich, the rich Arabs. They've all converted. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia. They're in Israel's pocket. They sponsor terrorism all over the place. Very simply, what will happen is every single person who is in the Middle East will be moved out into Europe and other countries. And eventually, this area, America, will just be America. And this will be the rich people's paradise, the playground, the utopia. It'll be modern. It'll be beautiful. Look at Dubai and everything else. If you haven't got money, go and live in Dubai. See how you get on. All the rich people have all got places there. And of course, we know that prostitution and everything else is absolutely right. And this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a hedonistic playground, the whole of the Middle East. And of course, the oil will keep pumping. They'll have people to pump the oil and everything else. And everybody else will be left to go to rack and ruin. And there won't be, Europe is already destroyed. They've already destroyed it. And I think they won't stop until eventually they've moved everybody out of the Middle East. And they have this, if you like, utopia. And then you'll all be living with windmills and everything else while they're driving around in their flash cars, caring nothing about climate change. People may turn around and say, that seems a very simplistic view. But it's where we're headed. And then we're going to end up like Qatar. The whole of Europe will end up like Qatar. You'll have 10% or 5% ruling class, and everybody else will just be worker drones or slaves. And they'll be grabbing children. They'll be grabbing children. I know it sounds bleak, Jim. I'm sorry, but
it's what I expected anyway. After reading all about it, I can see it coming. It is
grabbing children off the street, turning your daughters into prostitutes, grabbing your children off the streets and taking them, to the Middle East to be used in whichever way they like. And in the meantime, as they say, the Christian or the Western arm of these lunatics is the World Economic Forum. You will own nothing and be happy. Coming.
That's great.
Unless we can reverse it. And the only way we can reverse it is by stop electing bent politicians. If Israel becomes a superpower, we're in trouble. But there we are. What I am going to do is play you a little bit of, for those who are leaving the show now, and we're going to be stopping the live right here. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the live stream. And if you like what you saw, do come across. Of course, you're allowed to speak here. This is your show where you can actually get to talk. And it's all right to disagree. It really is. You can, we've got people in here who still believe in Trump, and that's fine. We've got people in here who don't. As long as you're respectful to each other, this is the place for you to come and hang out. If you've got a brain and you've got an opinion, come and see us. Warren Thornton on Patreon. There we go. So that's the end of the live. Anybody who's stopping on, I'm going to play a bit of Alexander Makouros. I'm going to literally put him on, so it's going to be quite a long show tonight. But that's the end of our normal show. But I am going to tag Alexander Makouros' thing on the end here because I haven't seen it, so I have no idea what it contains. But I'm hoping he's going to turn around and I hope so, Vic. I hope so, Vic. I'm hoping he's going to turn around and finally debunk, because he didn't the other night, and I was very furious with it because we know full well that it was a false flag, and we'll have a little look and see what Alexander Makouros has to say tonight, because of course it will be interesting. He's normally pretty spot on political commentator. I was pretty annoyed with it yesterday. Let's see what he's got to say tonight. And of course, Alex, if you're out there and you are listening, nothing personal, old son, but we knew, and of course, we knew it was a false flag. Here we go.
Today is Monday, 23rd March 2026, and let me go straight in by saying that I had earlier today made my video for today. I had in fact just finished it a few minutes ago, and of course the topic of the video was the discussion, a detailed discussion of Donald Trump's 48-hour ultimatum to the Iranians, the ultimatum in which he said that unless Iran immediately reopened the Strait of Hormuz, the United States would carry out a devastating attack on Iran, over the course of which it would destroy Iran's entire energy complex. Well, as soon as I finished this program, I went to Donald Trump's Truth Social page, and there I read this comment, another post from Donald Trump, and he says the following: "I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East, based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump." Well, the moment I read that, I had to realize that a lot of the discussion of my video, which you'll be able to watch shortly, has been again overtaken by events, though not entirely so, as I will explain shortly. But I also immediately had my doubts, because Trump is talking about negotiations between the Iranians and the Americans for an end to the conflict. He appears to be implying in this Truth Social post that the Iranians are about to capitulate, or that's the way it reads to me. And I have seen absolutely no sign, no hint of that from the Iranian side whatsoever. And sure enough, within an extraordinarily short time after Donald Trump published that statement on Truth Social, the Iranians published this rebuttal, and its title is "Trump Backed Down After Iran Threatened to Retaliate, No Talks Underway." And the Iranian statement continues: US President Donald Trump has backed away from his 48-hour ultimatum to strike Iran's power plants after the Islamic Republic warned that all energy and power installations in the region would be targeted in retaliation. Trump claimed in a post on his Truth social media platform that the United States and Iran have had, quote, "very good and constructive conversations over the past 2 days regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East," end quote. The US president also said that he had ordered the Pentagon to postpone all plans for military strikes on Iran's electricity generation infrastructure for 5 days, subject to the outcome of the negotiations. A source familiar with the internal discussions in Tehran told Tasnim news agency, and Tasnim, I should say, is a semi-official news agency in Iran, on on Monday that there had been no official contact between Tehran and Washington. And then we have a quote from the source: "From the beginning of the war until today, messages have been sent to Tehran by some mediators, and the clear response has been that we will continue to defend ourselves until we achieve the necessary deterrence." End quote. The source, who spoke on condition of anonymity, said Trump's claim was aimed at stabilizing the markets and buying time to implement his military plans. And then there's a further quote: "With this kind of psychological warfare, neither the Strait of Hormuz will return to pre-war conditions, nor will calm return to energy markets," close quotes. So the Iranians, in other words, are straightforwardly denying Trump's assertions that there have been the in-depth, comprehensive discussions, conversations searching for a complete and total resolution of hostilities that Donald Trump mentioned in his Truth Social post. And I have to say this, based on everything that has happened, based on everything that I've heard from the Iranians and that I have seen play out in the Middle East over the last 3 weeks, I have no hesitation whatsoever in preferring the American account to President Trump's. President Trump, unfortunately, has a habit of making up things, of pretending that there have been conversations. He's twice invented conversations that he claims to have had with Prime Minister Modi of India, for example. He's claimed that he's broken ceasefires between various combatant countries around the world, to the bemusement of those countries. And now he's claiming, or so it seems to me, that there have been in-depth negotiations between the United States and Iran, when the Iranians are saying, and I have no doubt they're telling the truth, that there have been no negotiations of that sort at all. In fact, had there been negotiations, I think we would certainly have heard about them. And notice that Trump, in this Truth Social post, does not say whether negotiations are supposed to have taken place, who was involved, where these negotiations are going to continue. He provides none of the information that you would need if you were to take this comment seriously, especially in light of the many things of this nature that he has said in the past, which have turned out to be untrue. So, anticipating in this introductory comment that I'm making here, what I'm going to say in the rest of the video, over the course of the rest of the video, which was made on the assumption that President Trump's 48-hour ceasefire was still in place. Over the course of the video, I carefully explain why the 48-hour ultimatum and the Truth Social comment in which it was made gave every appearance of being an angry and emotional spasm by Donald Trump in a condition of panic following the attack on the Israeli nuclear on the town of Dimona in Israel, close to the nuclear installation there, and with the.
This is the most relaxing game in 2025.
Worries that must be affecting him about the deepening crisis in global energy markets. I explained why implementing that ultimatum made no sense at all, that what he was threatening the Iranians with could not be done within any sort of time frame that made military or political sense, but that if Donald Trump were to conduct an attack of that kind, it would undoubtedly, as the Iranians have warned, provoke a massive response from Iran, a response against energy facilities, energy production facilities across the Middle East, which, far from reducing the problems that Donald Trump and the United States are facing, would merely make those problems much worse, far worse even than they already are. And, well, again, to anticipate what has clearly happened is that various people over the last 2 days within the White House, within the administration, have been explaining all of these things to Donald Trump, explaining to him why what he has threatened cannot work, why if it is attempted it would be a disaster. And Donald Trump, faced with this reality, has tried to walk his ultimatum back, and as is the way with him, rather than simply admit that the warning that the threat was a mistake, he's come up and he's given himself a get out of jail card by inventing a negotiation with the Iranians, which is not even taken place. Now, that is not to say that there will not be negotiations over the next few days. There's been some references in the media about contacts between the Iranians and the Americans via the Russians. The Iranian response, which I just read out, actually says that there are various countries that have been positioning themselves as mediators, and that there have been contacts through these mediators between the United States and Iran, though Iran has not changed or modified its position. So it's possible that the United States, that Donald Trump, will now try to pursue avenues to set up a dialogue with the Iranians through the good offices of these mediators, who are almost certainly, in fact, realistically, they can only be the Russians. Having said this, the key takeaway here is that Donald Trump has backed down. He has blinked. He was right to back down. It would have been an act of supreme folly to act on his ultimatum of 2 days ago. But having said that, it would have been far better if that ultimatum had never been made in the first place. This strange behaviour is going to reinforce the opinion in Tehran that they have Trump on the run. And it is also going to reinforce the view of the Russians that in dealing with Trump, they have an unstable actor who changes his position from one moment to the next and from one day to the next. And I'm going to finish this intro by also saying that there's been a lot of speculation which leads off that Iranian statement that Trump
I do apologise. It seems to have cut out there. So what we'll do is we'll end it there. But that is obviously, we seem to be having a little trouble getting that up. So just to turn around and say thank you so much for watching. It was nice to see Alexander's there. And I just want to say one other thing before we go. Sometimes when we have the people that we have and that they know what is going on and we sort of broadcast it, sometimes it takes other people a while to catch up. Diego Garcia, for instance, and of course, Trump lying through his teeth, for instance, lots of things. The biggest one that ever needed to catch up, of course, was the NATO bunker that was hit many, many moons ago and took many months, in fact, over a year before people finally admitted it. And it's really, really nice that we have people that we can tell here, because sometimes you're talking, and of course, you are literally talking on deaf ears because people want to believe rather than believe the truth. When we know it's the truth, sometimes it becomes incredibly frustrating. Yes, Mo, you're absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed for watching the show. And of course, we hope to see you again tomorrow morning at 7:30 GMT. Bye-bye.